with a brand new season of Scarlet Violet VGC Regulation F just launching a day or two ago. At least when you guys are seeing this, probably a few days ago. I wanted to do an updated tier list of all the Indigo disc Pokemon that actually returned to the game, and all the new Paradox Mons and the new, I don't know, Iron type Mons, I guess you would call them. So, if you guys missed my first list, we actually did a tier list ranking all the returning Pokemon before right when the DLC dropped, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago now. If you guys missed that, I pretty much break everything down. It's like almost a 45 minutes, an hour video. I talk about everything. I go through every single mon and kind of just talk about where I think they were going to place, at least early on in the DLC. And now that we're actually going into Regulation F, I want to do an updated tier list because the meta has developed a lot. We know what's being played, what's good, what's bad, how all the new moves and how viable they actually are and if they're actually good, and all the different changes with a lot of Pokemon in the game and how it kind of just is going right now. So I've been on the ladder. Like, I'm just kind of going based off of like best of one. This is going to be mainly for in-game ladder. I'm not going to be doing best of 3 or like tournament play. I'm going to be going based off the in-game ladder with the tiers in-game, from all the way up from like Ultra Ball tier into your Master tiers. If you want to climb into Masters, that's what this list is going to be based on. I've been climbing the ranks, and I actually already got to Masters already. At least when you guys are seeing this, I've been playing the ranked for about a few days now, so been kind of just grinding and slowly climbing the ranks, and I finally made it back to Masters. And I've been playing a shit ton of casuals too, because I've been recording non-stop, as you guys can probably see over like the last 2-3 weeks. I've had daily uploads, so been playing a lot of the game, and I've been on the ladder a lot. So I think I've played maybe like a couple hundred, close to probably like 500 games total, even on the casual ladder. It has to be something close to that at this point over the last few weeks. So without further ado, I'll throw if the list isn't already on screen for you guys, I'll throw it on screen. If you guys missed the last list, go check it out before you guys watch this video. If you guys want to just tab out and listen to me talk as well, there's not going to be too much on screen. I'm kind of just going to be mainly just talking about a lot of stuff in this video. So if you guys want to tab out and just listen to me talk, that's completely fine as well. I'll throw the list on screen. We got the banned tier. That's where the stuff that's not going to be legal is going to be going into. I'm not going to really talk about any of that stuff. I'll maybe briefly talk about a few things, but not going to be talking about any of that stuff. S tier is the stuff you're going to see on almost every single team. It is splashable onto any team comp, and you're just going to be throwing on your team. It is the stuff that you throw onto a team, and it's almost guaranteed to do something. And you're going to be seeing on a lot of your games on a lot of teams. A tier is your other stuff. Not really as splashable as like the S tier, but it's still stuff that you're going to be seeing a lot, and it's just really good Pokemon overall. B tier is a little bit more below average. Not really incredibly bad, but needs a little bit of help to actually make it actually put in work and kind of do stuff. C tiers are more situational stuff. You kind of really need to start building a team around the stuff in C tier to actually get it to perform very well. And the stuff in the higher tiers is just a lot more splashable, or just outshadows most of the stuff in C tier. And then D tier is your borderline useless stuff. Maybe the Pokemon in this tier have like maybe one specific niche or like one use case, but apart from that, they're either completely outclassed by something in the higher tiers, or there's no reason to really use them at all. And then F tier is your stuff that you're pretty much throwing, the stuff that's just absolutely fucking garbage that legit does nothing. And there's a few of those that I'll unfortunately probably have to throw onto F tier, unfortunately, but that's the stuff that you're better off just not picking at all. It's either just not good in VGC and maybe has more viability in singles, or just overall just completely bad. So before I get into this, well, if there's anything I forget to explain and talk about, let me know in the comments down below. I'll probably throw a timestamp at the beginning of the video just to skip right into the tier list. Didn't just kind of skip the intro to this, but there's a lot I want to talk about. So without further ado, we got Venusaur. I think Venusaur, I forgot where I put it last time. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was. I'm going to probably put Venusaur, I'll put it in C tier. I'll put it in B tier. I think Venusaur can be good. I think the one thing it really has going for it is Sleep Powder. I think that's the main thing. But if you want a Sleep Powder user, there's just so much competition right now for grass types. You got Rillaboom, you got Amoonguss, all the Ogerpon forms, which are really, really solid right now. Every single Ogerpon form is incredibly good. There's just so many grass types. Even like Superior, I think, is better than Venusaur, just overall stats-wise and what it really wants to do. There's just a lot of grass types right now, and you're competing a lot of that. And being that Venusaur is only really good in Sun, which is really common right now. Like, weather's pretty common, either rain or sun's really common right now. But are you really going to be swapping something out that's just way better with a Venusaur on your team over like a mon that has photosynthesis or like something like that on your team? Like, you're just kind of, I don't know. I mean, you can use it, but it just doesn't really make much sense. That's why I'm kind of putting it in B tier. Blastoise, unfortunately, this thing's not good. It's just not good. I think it's way better in singles. I think Shell Smash can maybe be viable in singles, but there's just no reason to use Blastoise. And even on Rain, if you want to throw this thing onto like a Rain team, it just gets outshadowed by so many other water types. Why would I use Blastoise over Kingdra even? I think Kingdra would be like 10 times better, or like Urshifu if you want a water type. There's just so many other better water types. Even like Ogerpon, Wellspring's just so much better. Way too many good water types in the game right now, and Blastoise just pretty much has no reason to really be picked. It's not. I'm not going to put an F tier because I don't think it's that bad. Well, with like some of the mons that are probably going to be down here, but it's, I think, just way better in singles. If you want to make it work, play it in singles. Vileplume's garbage. I think it's really, really bad. There's no reason to play Vileplume at all. Base 50 speed, if you want to use it, you gotta run it in Sun, and even then, with double speed, it still is not that fast. There's just no reason to use this at all. Unless you're making a team of memes, and you're making like a meme team with Vileplume, there's no reason to use it at all. It's really bad. Tentacruel, same thing. You're not going to be seeing Tentacruel at all, and I think it's just way better in singles. This is a mon that shines in singles. VGC, you're not going to see it that much. Same with Dodrio. I don't think Dodrio is really good at all in VGC. I think it's really bad. Going to F tier. Dugong actually gets Perish Trap. It actually gets Flip Turn as well, so it can do some really cool Perish Trap stuff. It can set up the Perish Trap, and it can also swap out before it dies, which is kind of cool while having people trapped in. So you compare this alongside like a Gothitelle, and it actually gives something really viable, like another really good viable Perish Trap user that's pretty bulky. To like the Perish Trap type playstyle if you really want to play that. So I guess if you want to use Dugong for that, that's the only reason you're going to probably be using it. Apart from that, I just don't think it's that good though. And it's also another water type that's it's bulky, but it doesn't really have much offensive presence in the ice. Water typing really is not the greatest. You're just weak to so much. You're weak to Urshifu, you're weak to Raging Bolt, you're weak to so much stuff that's really common right now. Archlydon, I think, is really good. I think I don't really care for, at least me personally, I think Archlydon's still kind of overhyped, but you can't deny that this thing is on a lot of teams, and when you bring this thing, especially in Rain, it always does something. I've seen a lot of different Terras on this thing. I've seen Terra Fairy, I've seen Terra Electric, I've seen Terra Steel. There's a bunch of different Terras you can run this thing. I've seen Terra Grass, too, at one point, which is kind of cool. A lot of different items you can run. You can run, like, Life Orb. Most common is Assault Vest, or, like, I think Power Herb, I think it is, if you don't want to run it in Rain. This is a really good mon. I think Archlydon's a really good mon right now. If you guys want a really good mon to use in Rain, I think you're going to be looking at Archlydon. I think that's a really solid mon that's pretty good right now. And it has really good abilities too. His stamina is really good, especially if you have nothing that can really like break through stamina. Like a lot of stuff that can kind of break through it has like Sacred Sword or to sit you on the special side. But if you don't have anything like that, then you kind of just stack stamina, and then Body Press just starts hitting really hard automatically just by taking hits. And it has a really solid defense stat to kind of use. So really cool mon. I still think it's overhyped. I don't think it's nearly as good as it really is, but I haven't really used it at all that much. I think I maybe used it once, but I haven't really built around it. Hydrapple, I think, can work. I think if you're going to be seeing Hydrapple, it's going to be in Trick Room. I'll put it in B tier. I think you can build around this thing. I've seen this thing in, like, Trick Room, and it does pretty well. And I've seen this also on teams with, like, Skill Swap with, like, Malamar to Skill Swap Contrary onto it with, like, Leaf Storm and Draco, which kind of just sweeps. It has all the stats it really needs. I think the only thing that is really holding Hydrapple back is you're kind of forced to Terra this thing. The Grass Dragon typing isn't too bad, but like it's just so weak to like ice types and a lot of common stuff. It's weak to Flutter Mane. It's weak to a lot of the fire types right now. Entei is really common. Incineroar is really common. There's a lot of common fire types. Scourging Fire, it's weak to. And this is the main problem with Hydrapple. It's just a Terra mandatory type mon, and you need to kind of really build around it to make it work. Otherwise, it ain't too bad though. Gouging Fire, I'm going to put an A tier. You're not seeing this thing as much, but I do think it's really, really solid. It has really good stats. It has a really solid move pool. There's a lot of different movesets you can actually run. My favorite is actually Loaded Dice Scale Shot. I think Loaded Dice with Scale Shot is actually really, really good. A lot of people are sleeping on that set right now. I think that's my favorite one. But the most common one I see is like Break and Swipe or even like Dragon Dance, I think is the most common right now. But if you let this thing set up, it can sweep. It has a really cool signature move as well with Burning Bulwark, which is something really cool. You can't like deny the Burning Bulwark. You got to respect that, otherwise you just get burned. And if a lot of stuff gets burned right now, that it does not want to get burned. So like you're gonna have to respect the Burning Bulwark automatically, and that gives a lot of viability. Raging Bolt's going to S tier. This thing's great. I think out of all the Paradox Mons, I think Raging Bolt is probably either the first or the second best one right now. I think out of all the ones we've gotten. Really good Mon. You're seeing this, I think it is I don't know how much of a pick rate it actually has, but I know it's in the top 20, I think it is currently. They released the pick rates recently on Pokélytics. I'm not 100% sure what it was. I know top 2 was Incineroar and Fluttermane. That was top 2. I'm not sure all the other ones. So I know Shifu was top 5, I think. I think Landorus I might have been in top 5. I'm not sure, but that was for the main like tournament scene. On the ladder, it gets a little bit different. You see a little bit more stuff until you get like really high in the Master Ball tier ladder. But Raging Bolt's really good. It has all the stats. It has a really good special attack stat. I think it's like 137. I think it's 78 speed or something. So you can actually run this thing really bulky under Trick Room and run it really slow, or you can actually run it under Tailwind. Or you can just run it like bulky overall and it can eat a bunch of hits. You don't really even need to invest in the speed if you really don't want to. You can just run it full bulk because of Thunderclap, which is priority. Thunderclap's really good. I've seen Calm Mind variants. It gets Dragon Pulse, Draco Meteor. I've seen Terra variants. I've seen like Terra Fairy, Terra Blast, Terra Water, Terra Blast to deal with the ground types, which is kind of cool. I've seen Terra Steel, Terra Blast to just knock back Fluttermane in one hit. And just take a hit, take a Moonblast, and knock it back into 5th dimension. So, a lot of really cool builds with this thing. You're going to see it a lot, and it's one of the best checks to Urshifu in the game. That's kind of why it's really, really good right now. Iron Boulder, I think, is undervalued. I think Iron Boulder, if a lot more people start using this thing, I think it's going to be like S tier. It has all the tools to be really good. I think the only thing that's kind of holding it back is you kind of have to build a team around it to make it work, but it has everything you want. It has great speed, great attack stat. The typing doesn't really matter. The thing that people like to shit on is with the typing, but like the Psychic Rock typing doesn't really matter when you're going to probably be 1 or like 2-shotting everything else on the enemy team, and you're not going to really be living any hits anyways. It's just mainly for an offensive typing, which Psychic Rock is pretty good, and you also have fighting coverage and a few other things. Mighty Cleave is so good as well. A lot of people don't even know what Mighty Cleave does because Iron Boulder's not really played that much. I went against a lot of teams where I was actually I have a rental like Iron Boulder team I was using, and a lot of teams people still protect in your face, and you can just Mighty Cleave through their protect, and they don't expect it at all, and you get like a bunch of free damage or free KOs on stuff. Just because people still don't even know really how to play it because it's not really played that much, or like play against it. Really underrated Mon. Really, really good. Mighty Cleave's great. If you're able to just sit and click Mighty Cleave over and over, I think that's the main value you're going to be getting out of this thing. The only problem is Intimidate, but like Clear Amulet exists. And same with like Choice Band if you really want to run Choice Band, or even like Sword Sand setup variants. So it has options to get around Intimidate, but I think that's the main thing that's holding it back. Then there's a lot of other faster stuff in the game with like Tailwind or like Booster, but it has its upside. I think it's really, really solid. Just kind of underexplored right now. A really huge fan of Iron Boulder. Iron Crown, I'm going to put in A tier as well. You're seeing this thing, it's probably one of the better like expanding force users. You pair this alongside Indeed or even like manual terrain with like a booster energy, like either speed or special attack. I've even seen this thing in like Trick Room. It's not really the greatest in Trick Room. I still think like Armor Rogue, and there's a few other like expanding force users like Hatterene and that type of thing that you can probably use, but really solid Mon. I think it has a really solid typing too. Steel Psychic typing's pretty good. You're weak to Fluttermane, but like you're usually going to be using a defensive Terra on this thing anyways. So Tachyon Cutter is also really good. It breaks through Sash. You don't have to really worry about Focus Sash. It's a double hit move that never misses, which is really great. Really solid. I think the only thing that's really lacking with Iron Crown is it lacks coverage. It only has like Steel and Psychic Stab, and apart from that, you're either running Terra Blast or like Focus Blast most of the time. That's the only real downside to it, I think. That's why I'm not going to put it higher on this list. Terrapagos, you're not legal. Alolan Exeggutor, I think Alolan Exeggutor is actually D tier. If you really want to make this thing work, I've seen it put in work in like Trick Room. I think Trick Room Alolan Exeggutor is pretty good, and it can also actually set up its own Trick Room by itself. So you can like proc your own Trick Room on one turn, live with like Harvest, Citrus Berry, and then proceed to kind of just put in a little bit of work and see how far you can go. Regular Exeggutor, though, you're not going to be seeing this thing at all. It's really bad. Even if the only way you're going to be running it is in Sun, and its speed status is so bad that you're not even going to be able to do much, and it's just weak to so many things. It gets one-shotted by like half the shit in S tier and below, so. Hitmonlee, you see this thing once in a while. I'm not going to put it in F tier because I think you can run this thing either on Grassy or Psychic Terrain, or even I guess if you want like Electric Terrain, which isn't most common, but it's viable, I guess, if you want to do that as well. With like a Seed. I've also seen normal gem with like Fake Out to get your Unburden, even with no terrain, but I don't think that's really that good. I think that's more viable in singles. But there is that option. It's a pretty fast Unburden user, and it's a fighting type of burden user, which we don't really have much of yet, so. Hitmonchan, though, is really bad. I don't think you're going to be playing that at all. A Mon that's just way better in singles, I think. Rhydon, there's no reason to use this thing at all. Better in singles. Lapras, I'm going to put it D tier, but I think it just gets outshadowed by Dugong, so I'll actually probably move it like to F tier. I think it's better in singles. I don't know anything that Lapras really does that Dugong just doesn't do better. It has Perish Song, but the only other thing that Lapras really does, it has more damage, but there's no reason to really be using Lapras at all. It has a good HP stat, and it's kind of bulky, but just way too slow. I guess if you want to run a Trick Room, there's just so many other better stuff. It's another water type that just gets outshadowed by so many other water types in the game currently. Meganium, I'm gonna piss somebody off with this. I really am, but I'm putting Meganium in F tier. I think it's really bad. There's no reason to use Meganium at all. What does Meganium do? It sets up screens if you want to set up dual screens. I guess you have Curse, I guess you have Body Press. Whatever, you get Knockoff now, whoop-de-doo. He just doesn't have the stats, and it's just kind of dead weight. Like, if you bring a Meganium to the game, you're just bringing, like, dead weight most of the time, because if you wanted to set up screens, then yeah, you're going to get your screens up, probably, unless you just get one-shotted by something that's faster than you, which is really common, too. Or like, your opponent just takes the Meganium and just doesn't even regard it as a threat, and they just double into whatever else you have on the field, and they make it like a 4v1 at the end of the game, so I just don't think it's that good at all. I think it's really bad. I know I'm going to piss somebody off with that, though, but I don't know. I haven't seen a single Meganium on the ladder, apart from when I played a team around it, and I have not seen a single one ever since then, so I think I was the only one probably playing Meganium on the ladder recently. Within like the last 2 weeks. For Alligator, I've seen it on the ladder. It puts in work. I'm going to put it in C tier because you can run this thing in Rain. This thing with Sheer Force, with like either a Choice Band or even like a Life Orb with Sheer Force, hits like an absolute fucking truck. It really does. Liquidation just hits so hard in the Rain. The only problem is you have Raging Bolt and you have a bunch of other water types, and you just get completely outshadowed by Urshifu, which is way better in every single way. And there's really no reason. Why would I run for Alligator over Urshifu? I have no idea, especially in the Rain, alongside like a Tornadus or with a Pelipper or Politoed. That's just the main problem. But I do think it has viability. If you want to build around it, you really like for Alligator, you can make it work. It has decent coverage moves, and it hits really, really hard. It's just kind of slow, and it needs a lot of support from its team. Hear me out, y'all. I'm going to put Lantern into D tier. This thing has a really unique niche. It has 2 really good abilities. Its stats really aren't the greatest, but it gets a really good move pool and has a really unique niche. This Mon is one of the only Mons in the game that I can actually 100% wall Raging Bolt right now, which a lot of people don't even know. You get Life, or you not get Life Orb, you get a Volt Switch, or not Volt Switch, Volt Absorb. You get a Volt Absorb, and you can actually Terra Fairy. If you Terra Fairy a Lantern alongside with your ability Volt Absorb, you 100% wall Raging Bolt, which is one of the only Pokemon in the game that can actually do that. Believe it or not, I actually seen it, and I've seen a few clips of it, and actually put in a bunch of work and actually ended up winning some games with that just because Raging Bull is so common. So it has a really unique niche right now, but apart from that, you're not going to be seeing it at all. I guess you can also run it, I guess, for like to try to absorb water type moves because you also have water absorb, but at that point, why would you just use Lantern over like Ogre Pawn Water, which has water absorb as well, and it also has Follow Me and way better stats. So it does have a niche with like that build, just to like check one of the highest, like one of the higher usage mons right now. That's incredibly common. But apart from that, like if you're bringing this onto your team just to check one thing, I think you're better off just scrapping your team or like trying to build your team to kind of counter the Raging Bolt better than just trying to throw a random mon onto it. Just try to counter one thing. So that is the main problem. But it does have a specific niche, which I think is kind of cool. Blossom, garbage, not going to talk about it. Grand Bull, I think, is really bad. Really, really bad. I went against one team that had Grand Bull, and it has Intimidate and everything, but it's just way too slow, and it just doesn't have the stats to really do anything. Its move pool isn't the greatest either. Skarmory, you're not going to really be seeing. If I want to use a Steel Flying type, I think I'm better off using Corviknight, just because it has better abilities. I think Mirror Armor is a lot better of an ability than what Skarmory actually has. And it has a little bit better, like, defensive stats, at least. Kingdra I'm going to put in A tier. I think Kingdra, at least under Rain, if you want a special Rain Sweeper, I think is really, really solid. Alongside a Politoed or, like, a Pelipper, or, like, even, like, with Manual Rain, like a Tornadus or Thundurus, or, like any type of Prankster Rain, or whatever you want to use, I think is really solid. It has enough speed to actually outspeed a lot of stuff, and it hits really, really hard in the rain, especially if you have, like, Weather Ball, or just run it, like, full Life Orb. I've even seen Specs Kingdra, and Specs actually puts in a shit ton of work. It's a really solid mon. You got a lot of coverage moves. You got Dragon, Stab, you got Ice. I think he gets Ice Beam. A few other things. Porygon 2, really, really good. Putting it in an A tier. I'm putting it in A tier. I'm not going to put it in S tier because I don't think it's that good, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on Porygon right now. It is one of the new best Trick Room setters in the game. It is just so bulky. It is so difficult to kill a Porygon 2. It really is. It is just so difficult. It's incredibly good. If you guys haven't used Porygon 2 or went against it, you guys are very lucky or sleeping on Porygon 2. I don't know what to tell you. Smeargle I'm going to put in B tier. I think Smeargle, especially on like best of 1 on the in-game ladder, is incredibly good. I just have not seen it at all. I do want to make a team around Smeargle, like a team with Smeargle on it, and I do want to make like a meme, like full team of 6 Smeargles for like just a troll like singles ladder as well, versus like 6v6 singles. Eventually, if you guys are seeing this, I might actually be working on that right now. I don't know, it's going to take forever to do in-game to try to sketch every move I want, find that type of stuff, but if you guys want that, let me know in the comments. But I think Smeargle is pretty good. It's a mon that you can use any move on. It really is. If you even want to cheese this thing on like the casual ladder, you can still trace Dark Void. If you really want to cheese this on the casual ladder, Dark Void on the casual ladder is legal. It's just not legal on the master, like the ranked ladder, because it's a banned move. So if you want to use Smeargle on the casual ladder just to try to get people to rage quit, you can do that as well. You can trace any move in the game. It's just really, really good. I got Hitmontop. I don't think this thing's that good. I'll put it in C tier because it does have Intimidate and has a decent supportive move pool. But like, there's no reason to use a Hitmontop when Incineroar is in the game and it just does its job way better. There really is not. Raikou, I'm going to put it at a C tier. I think this is probably the worst out of the 3 legendary dogs. At least like the non-paradox forms of the legendary dogs, that is. It's just not that good. I don't know. You can run it under Rain, like I've tried to run it under Rain, but I think if you want to run Raikou right now, I think the best way to run it is more of a supportive set with either like Electro Web or Snarl, or like Volt Switch, or like Volt Switch around and that type of thing. It gets a decent supportive move pool, and it also gets Calm Mind, which could be pretty good. But I think if you want to use it, you're either running double screens or like running more of a supportive Raikou, because it has a decent speed stat and it could be pretty bulky if you build it the right way. Entei is going to S tier. It is one of the top tier fire types right now. It's really, really good. Sacred Fire is such a busted move. It has a 50% chance to burn. You're pretty much, if you get a burn on a lot of stuff right now, that's especially like a lot of the physical attackers going around, and you just burn them, you pretty much nullify what they're able to do, and you can easily win the game that way. Really, really good mon. You're seeing Assault Vest ran. Alongside like Chim Pao, you're also seeing like Life Orb or even like Choice Banded, like Terra Fire or Terra Normal with E-Speed is really, really good. That type of thing. Most of the time, you're really just going to be clicking Sacred Fire and just trying to burn everything. It's kind of what it does. Incredibly good. And you can't get intimidated either. You can't get flinched or intimidated, which is the one main thing that's, I think, what makes it really, really good. Because you can go into the Incineroar matchup, you have Stomping Tantrum and that type of thing to actually hit Incineroar, and he can't intimidate you or flinch you. So you kind of threaten that and do solid damage to Incineroar most of the time. And it can't really do much back to you apart from like a knockoff. Got Suicune. I'm going to put Suicune at probably a B tier. You're not seeing it that much, but I think Suicune is really slept on right now. It's a really good bulky water type. It gets Tailwind, it gets Calm Mind, Snarl, Icy Wind. It gets Scald, which is really busted. It has a really good move pool, really solid stats. It has everything you really want. I'm not seeing an incredible amount, but I do still see it once in a while, which is really good. And when I do see it, and even when I do use it myself, it does put in a bunch of work, so I'm not going to put it higher than a B tier, though, just because it doesn't really have as much usage as some of the other mons above it. Lugia's banned. Ho-Oh's banned. Sceptile, I think, is really bad, but I'm going to put it in D tier just because it's a really fast and burden user. You can put it under grassy terrain, mainly, or even like psychic terrain, and you can get a burden off. Apart from that, I do not think it's good at all, though. When you guys are seeing this, there's probably a Sceptile session on the channel right now, and I recently did a video like featuring Sceptile on like a team, and it still didn't change my opinion on it that much. Blaziken, I think Blaziken is solid, but it's just outshadowed by so many other fire types. I think that's the main problem. I don't know. Smogon was fucking stupid enough to ban this thing. I don't know why they fucking banned Blaziken. That just goes to show you how stupid Smogon is. Believe it or not, y'all, Smogon banned Blaziken. I think it was last gen or the gen before. Why? Why did they ban Blaziken? I don't even know. It still can be good, though. It still can be good. I think the only thing is it's just so weak to priority moves, and if you actually want to do damage with this thing, you're either forced to go Stellar Terra or like Terra Fire or Terra Fighting to actually do really solid damage, and you're forced to run Flare Blitz and you can't run Focus Sash. The only other fire moves it actually gets that are actually decent base power are Fire Punch, Blaze Kick, and Temper Flare, and both of those are I think Blaze Kick is only 90% accurate, and it's like 75 power. Same with Fire Punch, and then I think Timber Flare I think is 70 power. I think it's either 70 or 75 base power, but it can double if your move fails, which is really situational. I don't know. I think that's just the main problem. You're kind of forced to run Flare Blitz most of the time to actually do decent damage if you want a fire type move. When you have stuff like Entei in the game or like Gouging Fire that can just click Heat Crash or like Flare Blitz themselves and just one-shot everything without even having to worry about that type of thing. So the speed boost is good though. I think it +1 with a Jolly nature. I think if you're running max speed, you can outspeed non-booster Flutter main at +1. I think you can. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm making a Blaziken team right now. I might actually almost already have it done, depending when you guys are seeing this. So I've been kind of doing a lot of calcs and kind of looking at the stats and that type of thing when I'm putting that team together, just kind of touching it up before I make it fully in-game. So not a bad bond, though. I think the only other problem, too, is you have to run close combat if you want, decent fighting stab. And it just gets intimidated by everything, too. And then the problem with the Blaziken is if you get intimidated, spam just doesn't do anything. You can get as much speed as you want, but, if you're not doing any damage, it doesn't really matter. And Incineroar and Landorus and that type of thing with intimidation is so common. Same with, parting shot spam and, stat lowering spam is just really common right now. We got Swampert. I don't think Swampert's that good. I have not seen Swampert at all. I think it has a good typing. The ground water typing's really good. I just don't think it really does much, though. There's no reason to really use it. If you really want a ground water type, just pick Gastrodon because it has a way better ability with Storm Drain and a way better move pool. At least, for VGC with, Yawn and a bunch of other stuff. Minun and Plusle, garbage. Really bad. What else do we have? Flygon. I think Flygon, I featured Flygon in one of my teams. If you guys missed it, it's live on the channel right now. But I made a sand team, and I actually had Flygon on that team, and it put in a lot of work. I just don't think it's that good, though. There's no reason to really use it. You're forced to run Sash on the thing, and that's the main thing you're going to have to be doing. Even if you run like a defensive Terra, most of the time you still get 2-hit KO'd, even if it's resisted, with like a lot of the heavy hitting stuff that's in the game right now. Metagross is going right up to A+ or A tier. I think Metagross is really good. This actually you could probably argue this thing probably even S tier. I think it's really, really solid. Great stats, great move pool. You can have a bunch of different ways to run this thing with like item wise and like build wise. You can run it with a lot of different stuff, like alongside Chimpow, or even like more supportive or AV and that type of thing. You can run a defensive Terra on it most of the time. Makes it a lot better. Really solid mana. You can probably argue it's even S, but I'm going to put it A tier right now, at least currently when I'm recording this. Regirock, I have not seen Regirock at all. I had one team where I featured Regirock recently, and it put in work, but like that was the casual ladder, and I don't think if you're going onto the actual ranked ladder, I don't think Regirock's really that good. I'm gonna put it in F tier. I think it's way better in singles if you really want to make it work. Same with Regice. I think the only Regi that you can maybe get some viability out of is probably Registeel, which I'm probably gonna put at B tier. The main reason why is because it has incredibly great stats. It has the Steel typing with Terra to use defensively if you go against something you don't want to go against. And it also gets Iron Defense Body Press and Heavy Slam, which is huge for Flutter Mane and a few other things. That's the main thing it has going for it. And not a lot of people aren't really prepared for Registeel, so if you can set up to +2 or +4 Iron Defense and they have nothing to break through you, you can't get your stats lowered because you have clear body, so you can't get intimidated to death. You can kind of just roll the game at that point most of the time. I do think it's probably the best out of the Regis. I really do. Latias, really solid. I'm gonna put Latias in A tier. It's one of the best Urshifu and Landorus Eye checks in the game, just because you have Levitate and Landorus Eye really can't do much versus you. You also have Ice Beam. You have a really good supportive move pool and a crazy good move pool. Solid stats. Latios, I'm going to put a little bit lower, just mainly because you're going to be prioritizing Latias over Latios, but I think Latios is still really, really good. Just the more offensive version, if you want the more offensive version of both of the two, I think you're going to be picking Latios. Deoxys, I think that's speed, that's Deoxys regular, banned, defense, that's banned, speed's banned. I don't know what this one is. I think this one's, is that the normal one or is that the attack one? I'm not sure. Whatever one that is, it's banned. Rampardos, I don't know. I think if you want to run Rampardos, the only thing you can do with it is run Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf or Choice Bandit and Trick Room, and even then, I just don't think it's that good. It's so weak to priority, and its defensive stats are so fucking bad. You get one-shotted by anything. You can throw a piece of paper at the Rampardos, and it'll faint and fall over. It has a sky-high attack stat, but apart from that, every other stat is really bad. Bastiodon, no matter how much Terra type you can throw at this thing, I still think it's really, really bad. Rhyperior, I'll put it in D tier because I think you can make it work, but I have not seen it at all really that much. Or at least on a lot of the teams that actually want to win. It's more of a meme type pick that needs an entire team built around it to make it work. Electivire is really bad. Electivire got absolutely screwed with the DLC. Supercell Slam is probably one of the worst moves you could ever give this thing. Why would I ever run Electivire and plus even Supercell Slam over Wild Charge when I have to sit there and think about, is my opponent going to protect this turn and am I going to take half my health as recoil? Why do I have to sit there and think about clicking one move when I should just be able to click an electric type move, which a bunch of other electric types can do right now, like Raging Bolt. You just click Thunderclap and you don't really have to think about much most of the time. I don't know. I think Electivire got absolutely shafted. I really do. Same with Magmortar. Wow, it got Follow Me. They both got Follow Me. You're still not seeing him be played at all. If you want to make them work, I think singles is where you can make them work. Maybe they're better in singles. I just don't think they're that good in VGC, unless you build an entire team around them. Even then, they're not really that good. Porygon Z, I'm going to put it at a D tier. This thing hits like a truck. The only problem is its speed stat. I think it's base 90. So you're either forced to run a Choice Scarf or run it under Tailwind, or with speed support with either Icy Wind or Electro Web on something. I think that's the main problem. But I do think this thing is really good with adaptability, or even on analytics, pretty good. With either a Life Orb, Scarf, or even Specs. Terra Normal's crazy too. Terra Normal, adaptability, Life Orb, Hyper Beam, or that type of thing can just one-shot anything. Even if it's resisted a lot of the time too with how hard it hits. Pair that with like a helping hand boost or even like beside Chiyu for like Beads of Ruin. We're cooking now. We're cooking with Porygonzi. I got a bunch of ideas for that thing, but it's not that good, unfortunately. Superior is actually solid. I think Superior is really solid, but I'm not going to put it higher than a B tier because the main problem with Superior is you need to be able to set up. If you can't get to +2 or even like +4, it just doesn't do enough damage. That's the main problem with Superior. Apart from that, if it had better stats, just like starting stats, without having to set up, I think it would be way better. Still a really good mon, though. If you guys like Superior, I think Superior is really solid right now. It's kind of being overlooked. Not many people are actually preparing for Superior, and you can actually kind of, if you can get rolling with it, you can just sweep teams. What do we have? Actually, Superior as well. One last thing to mention about Superior. It's actually one of the only users that's incredibly good with like Stellar Terra, Terra Blast too. So that it has that going for it. Emboar. If you want to run this thing under Trick Room, I think you can maybe run under Trick Room, but I'm throwing it in D tier. Apart from that, I don't think it's that good. Zebstrika. Unfortunately, this thing sucks. I wish that this thing had a better move pool. Its move pool is so bad. It has really good abilities, but like its stats, the only stat it really has is speed. That's really good. I think it's 116 speed. Apart from that, its stats are so mediocre, it just doesn't do anything. Even if you throw like a band or a specs on this thing, like it can't even one-shot a lot of like neutral type stuff in the game. It's just so fucking weak. It really is. It's really sad. I think the only real like niche this thing actually has is like you can go like Terra Water or like Terra Fairy. It can do like the same thing as like Lantern can, but it's just like a worse type of version of Lantern. You can go like Terra Fairy on this thing or like Terra Water with the I think it's Lightning Rod and Motor Drive, so you can just absorb all the electric type attacks. You can only be weak to grass, and it also gets Sap Sipper, so if you want to run that as well, you could. I think that's the only real niche it has, because it can make use of Terra types pretty well. Like, I think Terra Water is really good on it, but apart from that, it's still really bad. There's no reason to use it even with that. Excadrill, if you want to run it in sand, I think it can be good. I'm not going to put it any higher than a C tier, though, because you just don't see it at all. I think I'm the only person that actually made like a sand team on the ladder recently. I have not seen sand at all. I went against one team that had, I think, Tyranitar, and they weren't even running Excadrill. They were just running a bunch of other, like, sand type stuff and a few other ground types. I don't know. I think I'm the only person that's made like a sand team, at least over the span of the DLC so far up until this point. I have not seen sand played at all. I've seen it in singles, like people are using Excadrill alongside Tyranitar in singles. It's pretty good in singles, but have not seen it at all in VGC. I think the main problem right now is everybody's just trying to run either Rain or Sun, and you're just not that good because you're forced to use Tyranitar, and there's not really like that many good like manual sand setters in the game, so kind of just getting outshadowed by the other two weathers, and the Paradox Mons with the Photosynthesis is just so much better. They just get so much of a boost with those. Whimsicott's going to S tier. Actually, I put the Deoxys forms in the wrong tier. My bad. I bet there's somebody in the comments. Oh, bro, you put Deoxys forms in S tier, bro. They're not. That was my bad. I did not notice. Whimsicott's going to S tier. Fastest prankster user in the game, gets a really good supportive move pool. Tailwind, Encore, Fake Tears, Moonblast, Giga Drain, Stun Spore, bunch of other stuff. Run either Sash or Clover Cloak, even with like a defensive Terra if you really want to, like Ghost for Fake Out or whatever you really want to run. We got Scrafty. I think Scrafty is slept on, but like it's just a Terra mon. You gotta 90% of the time, if you want to bring Scrafty, and if you even build a team around it, you're going to be using Terra on this thing because it's 4 times weak to Fairy, and it's also weak to Fighting. It's the problem with Scrafty too is like if you want to use it, you got to run setup, and it just gets intimidated, spammed to death pretty much, and makes it pretty much irrelevant, which is the main problem with it. It does get a lot of really good move pool though. I think the main thing that you're going to be running Scrafty for is its really solid stats. And it has a really solid move pool. It gets Dragon Dance, a bunch of other stuff. I think it actually gets Iron Defense. I know it gets Body Press. It gets a bunch of other cool stuff. Bulk Up, Swords Dance. Really solid coverage, too. Minccino's really bad. I don't know why you'd use this thing at all. I think it's way better in singles. I think Minccino, or Cinccino, I said Minccino. Cinccino is way better in singles. Reuniclus, I've seen in Trick Room, it can work. It just gets outshadowed by almost everything else, though. I don't know why you'd use this thing. Galvantula. Unfortunately, I think Galvantula is really bad. I think if you want to use Galvantula, you're going to be using it in singles. There's no reason to use that at all. Just not good. Unfortunately, with this so many other like priority running around, just gets outsped by a lot of stuff, especially under Tailwind. Doesn't do nearly enough damage. Why would I use Galvantula over Raging Bolt? I have no idea. Same with Golurk. I think Golurk's way better in singles. I guess if you wanted, you could run it under Trick Room, but like you're forced to Terra most of the time because you're weak to Flutter Mane. Cobalion, I think, is okay. I'll put Cobalion at C tier. Same with Terrakion. I think I'll put Terrakion a lot higher because you can pair it alongside Whimsicott, and it's probably the most common and probably the most viable out of the Swords of Justice trio, apart from Keldeo, but that's not legal, which we'll get to. And I'll probably put Virizion the lowest. I don't think the Virizion's that good. What do we got? We got I'm just gonna move these up to S tier. Zekrom, Reshiram, Kyurem Black, Kyurem White, regular Kyurem, Keldeo. Move these all right on up to into the banned tier. I wish Keldeo was legal. That's the one mon I wish was actually legal, but unfortunately it's not. Kind of sucks. I think if Keldeo was legal, I think it would be really, really good. We got Meowstic Male. I'm going to put Meowstic Male at a C tier. I think it is solid, especially with Prankster. And I'll put Meowstic Female down in D tier. I think with Prankster, the main one you're going to be using is Meowstic Male. I think with Prankster, it's pretty good. It gets Fake Out. It gets Manual Psychic Terrain, which is pretty good. One of the only mons that actually can set up Prankster Psychic Terrain. It gets a few other tools like Yawn and that type of thing. Fake Tears and a few other supportive moves, Thunder Wave, Screens. Malamar, I'm going to put at a C tier. I think if you want to run Malamar, you run it under Trick Room. I've seen a few strategies too with like Skill Swap Contrary, which I think is pretty common, but it's one of those mons that requires a lot of setup and you're kind of forced to run it under Trick Room most times. But if you can get it rolling, especially in Trick Room, it can sweep teams. And with Terra, it actually is a lot better, so you're able to get rid of the 4 times weaknesses to Bug and like Fairy and a few other common weaknesses with Terra, which makes it a lot better. Incineroar is going to S tier. I'd probably put this thing as like S++ tier if there was an S++ tier on this, because it's crazy. I'll probably put it like the best one on this list. It has, I think Incineroar has like it was a 46 or 47% usage rate, just right behind Flutter Mane recently on the Pokélytics, at least when I'm recording this. I think Flutter Mane had a 49% usage rate, and I think Incineroar was like at 46 or 47% usage rate. It's almost on every single team. It's brain dead mon. I'm not going to talk about it very much. Primarina I actually think is really good. I'm going to put Primarina at a B tier. The only problem with Primarina is you have to run this thing under Trick Room. I think that's the best way to use Primarina right now. You can run it under Tailwind, but it still gets outsped by so much stuff, and you're forced to run max speed, and then you're losing out on a lot of bulk by not throwing it into either to like your defense or HP, or even like throwing some extra into your special defense. If you want to run Primarina right now, you're running it in Trick Room. It's really good. It has a really good typing as well. You naturally wall or Shifu with the water fairy typing, which is great. You can Terra into a grass type for defensive Terra, which is really, really solid. Terra Fairy or even Terra Water to hit even harder. Hyper Voice with Liquid Voice is really, really solid. You can run it a lot of ways. I've seen Specs, I've seen Life Orb. Most common is probably Throat Spray. I've seen AV, a few other things too. It's really solid, mon. Toucannon, this thing sucks. Unfortunately, it's really bad. Araquanid, I think, is really good. I think under Trick Room, if you want a physical Watermon under Trick Room, I think the 2 water Pokemon you're going to be running in Trick Room right now. If you want a special one, it's going to be Primarina. If you want a physical one, it's going to be Araquanid. The only problem with Araquanid is it just gets Intimidate spam to death. It doesn't have the highest attack stat to begin with, and the main thing you're going to be relying on is just spamming water moves with Water Bubble, and you can kind of just get Intimidate spam to death by like Incineroar or like a few of the other Intimidators, which kind of sucks. And then, like, apart from water type moves, it doesn't really do much. You're not going to be hitting that hard. It has Leech Life for recovery and a few other things, but you're just going to be spamming and clicking one move most of the time, which is kind of one of the only drawbacks with it. But I think it is really good under Trick Room, and it hits hard as fuck. It really does. If you don't get Intimidate spam, that is. Comfey, I think, is being slept on. I'm putting Comfey at a C tier. I think people are sleeping on Comfey, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of it. It's going to rise up once people start seeing how really good it is. It pairs with a lot of stuff too. It pairs like Galarian Moltres. I've seen Galarian Moltres and a few other things alongside it. I tried to build a team, and it was on one of my teams recently, and it did really well. I was impressed with it. Minior, I think this thing is way better in singles. I'm going to put it a D tier, though, because you can run, like, Sash with, like, Shell Smash. And with a Shell Smash, it can be pretty good with, like, redirection or something. It's just kind of weak to priority at that point, though, which kind of holds it back, and it's weak to Fake Out and a bunch of other stuff. But it can be pretty good. I think Minior is kind of slept on. I haven't really seen much of it at all. I'm not going to talk about any of these because they're all illegal. I have Solgaleo, Lunala, Necroz. I don't even forgot was that Fusion Solgaleo and Fusion Lunala. I forgot the actual names then because I haven't played Sun, Ultra Sun, Moon forever. So, and then Necrozma is illegal, unfortunately. I think it would be decent if it was actually legal, but that won't be for a while yet, probably. Alcremie, I'm going to put it at a C tier. The main problem with Alcremie is there's so many other fairy types, and you're only really going to be picking it for Decorate type stuff. And even if you want to run Decorate, I think Smeargle is actually better for that, because you actually have a higher speed stat on Smeargle, and Smeargle just provides way more for you. So you're better off just sketching Decorate onto a Smeargle, alongside even like a Spore or something else to support your team. And you don't have to dedicate your fairy type to that. You can just throw a Smeargle onto your team, and you can still run like Flutter Mane or any other fairy you really want. I think that's just the main problem with Alcremie. I think I'll probably even put it lower. I'll put it in D tier. I don't think it's that good. You're only going to be running for one type of thing. Duraludon. You can run this thing with an Eviolite now. Whoop-de-doo, it's still not good. And then you got Regigigas. I'm going to put Regigigas at a D tier because I think alongside I think it's Galarian, or I think either Galarian or Alolan Weezing. I forgot which form it is. Not the Cantonian one, but the other one. With neutralizing gas, I think you can pair it alongside that. I've also seen like Skill Swap alongside like a Smeargle or some other a faster mon that gets Skill Swap to get rid of its slow start, which is pretty good. I don't know. I've seen a few other things too. I've seen like it paired alongside like a mon that gets Coaching, which I think is really good as well, just buffing its defense and kind of trying to get rid of its ability and just buffing it that way. I don't know. There's a few different ways, but like it's just really so fucking team dependent. And the only good thing that's going for it, though, is that you're a normal type, so you're only weak to fighting, and you have really good like HP and bulky stats. You're just really held back by your ability. That's kind of the main thing. And your move pool isn't the greatest either. You're forced to either run like Facade or some type of normal move, and I think you get Knockoff and like one or two other coverage moves, and that's if you want to run them, because most of the time you're going to be running Protect and maybe a sit-up type move. I don't know. Apart from that, though, that is the list, y'all. These ones on the bottom, I'm going to just say they're in band tier, but I don't want to move them up there and waste more time. But that is the list, y'all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. The Indigo Disc updated Regulation F tier list. A lot of really cool mons. A lot of really, really cool stuff. A lot of the stuff in A tier, too. You can kind of dictate or kind of like argue. Some of it can actually move up to S tier, arguably, some of this stuff. Like, you can argue, like, Arclodon's maybe an S tier, or like Gouging Fire, or a few of these other things like Iron Crown, or even like Porygon 2 or Metagross. I think if you were to argue one, I think Metagross maybe could be S tier. I'm going to keep it A tier for now until we see a lot more of it. It's still on the rise of usage. I think people are still kind of looking and seeing how good it's doing. I think once people find out how good it actually is, you'll see it even a lot more. So, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If there's anything I forgot to mention or talk about, let me know as well. Let me know your guys' own list in the comments down below if you want to as well. Got a bunch more stuff on the way, so if you guys like these types of videos, like the tier list videos, if these videos continue doing well, at least like the tier list videos, I'll keep on bringing them your guys' way in the future. They are a lot of work to edit and stuff, but hopefully it's worth, because the last one did pretty well, and hopefully you guys like this one. So, apart from that, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. Got a bunch more stuff on the way. I also go live over here, usually 2 times a week, and I also go live usually on Sunday nights over on Twitch. Link in the description over there. If you guys want to go follow me on Twitch. I also have a Discord. Link in the description down below as well. Apart from that, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys in a future video.